So what's missing now? Well, obviously, I want to make sure that when we have items in the cart, we can hit that order button here and add them to our orders screen. And for this, we need to manage orders. Now, in my opinion, it makes sense to add a new class, a new provided class for that, because it doesn't really fit into products. There, I want to manage the products we can work with. Doesn't fit into cart, because there I want to manage only my cart, not the orders. And product here is just a single product we use in products. We could, of course, also move that product class into the product start file. So I'll add a new file, orders.dart, where I want to manage the orders we have. In there, we can create a new class, orders, and I'll use with change notifier imported from Flutter foundation.dart, because of course we will provide that, and we might have places in the app where we want to listen to changes. Now in there, I want to manage some orders, unsurprisingly, and for that, of course, we first of all need to define how our order should look like. Just as with the cart, here I'll create my order item right inside the same file. You could do it in a separate file. And each order should have an ID, should have an amount, so the total amount, so the quantity of items times the price, so to say. I also want to find out which products were ordered. So I want to get a list of my products, and they're actually of the cart items to be precise, because I also want to find out which quantity was ordered and so on. So I'll import my cart dart file here so that I can use the cart item class here, and then have my products here, and also the time at which this order was placed. That's also something that's worth storing. Then let's add the constructor, and I will go with named arguments here to assign values to all these properties. Like this. Whoops, and that should be order item, of course. And also, just as we did it earlier, I'll mark all these arguments here as required. So that's our order item. In the orders class, we'll now have a list of such items. So down there, we can add list of type order item, or which holds an order item. Orders, which is empty initially, let's say. And then here we can already add a getter, which returns our order items, named orders, which returns a copy. Again, by using or by creating a new list with square brackets, and then using the spread operator to take some items and move them into this new list. So here, the items which are part of orders. And I'm doing this so that from outside this class, we can't edit orders. Now what I need here is, of course, an add order method, which returns nothing, but which is executed when we click that order now button here on the cart screen. The idea here is to then add all the content of the cart into one order. So I should probably get a list of cart items, which I'll name cart products here, as an argument. Maybe already get the total. If I already have that calculated, I don't have to redo it. And then with that, we can add this as a new order. So here we can then reach out to orders, to that list, and add it as a new order, or actually use insert with index 0 to add it as the first element in the list. Add will always add it at the end of the list. With insert 0, we add it at the beginning of the list, so that more recent orders are at the beginning of the list, but that's totally up to you. So here I'll use insert 0 to add the new order at the beginning of the orders list and move all existing orders, well, one index ahead to the end. And then here, the element which should be added is, of course, a new order item. And there we need to define an ID. And for now, I'll use datetime now to string to get a pseudo unique ID. Then we also need to define our amount here. That's the total which I'm getting as an argument. Then we have the current timestamp, and there we can just use datetime now. And we also need to pass in our products, and that are just the cart products which I'm receiving. So with that, we're adding a new order. And now in case we got someone who's listening, we want to call notify listeners so that any places in the app which depend on orders are now updated. Placing an order also means that we want to clear the cart, of course, because we ordered all elements, so the cart should be cleared. So in the cart Dart file, we can add a new method, clear cart, or just clear, whatever you want to name it. And there I will set items back to an empty map and then call notify listeners. We can now start using that. First of all, we need to provide our orders class, right? Because I plan on using that in different places in the app, either to dispatch actions like add a new order or to listen to my orders or fetch my orders. So where should we provide it? If we have a look at the main Dart file, we'll definitely need orders in the cart screen, or at least in a part of the cart screen there. And we'll add a new screen soon, which shows all orders. So therefore, we'll register a brand new screen, which definitely needs access to the orders. And therefore, we also need to provide the orders here in the root app. Just because it's important, keep in mind, this does not mean that the entire app rebuilds when something changes there, because it's not the provider which causes a rebuild, but the listener. And the listeners are not here in the main widget. They are in different widgets. For example, in the cart screen, where we have our cart provider and so on. These are the listeners which rebuild the UI. Therefore, in main Dart, we can now add another provider. Here, our change notifier provider with .value, where the value is actually a new instance of orders. And for that, of course, we need to import our orders.dart file from the providers folder. With that imported, we create a new instance here and provide that as a value. And with that, we can listen to orders from anywhere in our application. And of course, you already know it, just as recommended before, you shouldn't necessarily use the value constructor here. So just to re-emphasize this, the recommended approach here, again, as before, would be that you use the create function here in the normal constructor function of the change notifier provider for products, for cart, and also here for orders. Or of course the builders function if you're using provider package version 3. So that's the recommended approach. Again, I mentioned it before, it's just really important to me. The other approach also works, but that's the better approach.